Imagine this. You stand before a mirror, eyes tracing the contours of a face you've known all your life, yet feel increasingly alien to. You've read every self-help book, attended countless seminars, journaled until your hands cramped, and meticulously crafted your vision board, a roadmap to the better you. The latest motivational podcast echoed in your ears this morning, promising transformation, fulfillment, the key to unlocking your ultimate potential. You feel a flicker of hope, a surge of determination to push harder, to improve more, to shed the layers of flaws and limitations that have long shadowed your existence. But as the days pass, that hope wanes, replaced by a gnawing emptiness, a quiet despair that no amount of affirmations or goal setting seems to touch. Despite the relentless striving, something vital remains out of reach. You ask yourself, why do I feel like I'm running in place? Why does every self-improvement tactic, every new habit, every moment of positive thinking seem to skim the surface while the deeper unrest remains untouched? What if all this relentless betterment is a lie, a seductive illusion carefully crafted and sold that promises liberation but leaves you more trapped than ever? Here lies the paradox, the very quest for self-improvement, the endless cycle of fixing, polishing, and optimizing might be what blinds you from your most profound work, because real transformation isn't found in adding more strategies or amassing better versions of yourself. It's found in confronting the shadows you've buried, the darker aspects of your psyche that refuse to be ignored. What if true growth demands descending into the murkiest depths of your inner world, the parts you've hidden away because they frighten or shame you? Think about it. You chase productivity hacks to overcome procrastination. But what if procrastination is a symptom, not the disease? You push for confidence, yet what if your insecurity is not something to be eliminated, but understood? You cultivate gratitude, but what if behind your gratitude lies a secret well of resentment, jealousy, or fear that undermines your joy? Without facing these uncomfortable truths, the shadow within, you risk building your house on sand. Self-improvement becomes a game of masks, a show of progress that conceals the rot beneath. This shadow work, acknowledging, exploring, and integrating the hidden parts of yourself, demands more than motivation. It requires brutal honesty, patience, and the courage to sit with discomfort. It forces you to confront the parts of your identity you have denied or disowned. What emotions lurk in the corners of your mind when no one is watching? What narratives have you internalized that shape your reality in ways you cannot see? Who are you beneath the polished veneer of success and growth? Ask yourself, how much of your life is driven by unconscious fears, unresolved pain, or forgotten wounds? How often do you stumble in repeating patterns that self-improvement fails to address? The lies you tell yourself, I'm not enough, I must fix this, if only I change, I'll be happy. Are they scaffolding your freedom or shoring up a fragile prison? What if the very act of avoiding your shadow is what keeps you chained to a cycle of dissatisfaction? And here's the unsettling truth. In a culture obsessed with surface-level change, shadow work is often dismissed, feared, or misunderstood. It's messy, non-linear, and profoundly uncomfortable. Unlike the clean, tidy steps promised by many self-help frameworks, shadow work is an inward odyssey into ambiguity, paradox, and pain. It doesn't yield quick wins or neat outcomes. Instead, it dissolves illusions and challenges your deepest assumptions about yourself. Imagine waking up one day to find that the person you've been trying so hard to improve is not just flawed, but fractured. That beneath your ambitions and achievements lies a constellation of unacknowledged fears, insecurities, and contradictions. What happens when you stop running from these shadows? When you stop chasing the next better version and instead turn toward what you've always hidden? Can self-improvement survive this radical confrontation, or does it need to be fundamentally redefined? As you grapple with these questions, you might feel a tremor of resistance, a quiet voice urging you to turn back to easier paths, to quick fixes and comfortable illusions. But the pull of the shadow is relentless, and ignoring it only deepens your unrest. So, what is this shadow work? Why is it the missing piece in the self-improvement puzzle? What psychological and philosophical forces have buried it beneath layers of self-help rhetoric? And what consequences does ignoring it carry for your life and the world around you? These are the questions that beckon you to go deeper, to look beyond the glossy promises and face a truth far more unsettling and far more necessary. The journey into shadow work is the journey into the real self, the fractured, complex, beautiful self that no amount of surface polish can replace. But before we unravel this hidden dimension, pause for a moment. Feel the weight of the paradox in your chest, that the path to becoming truly whole begins not with brightening the light, but with stepping into the dark. What if all your self-improvement efforts to date have been chasing a mirage, a better version that can never exist without embracing the shadow it denies? The truth waits beyond the veil in the shadow's silent call, and it demands more than just another checklist of habits. It demands you. When you're ready, we will begin to uncover the hidden roots of this lie, and why your most vital work must begin in the shadows. Beneath the gleaming surface of your relentless self-improvement lies a concealed force, one that quietly shapes your efforts and steers you away from true transformation. This hidden problem is not lack of willpower, motivation, or knowledge. It is the refusal to acknowledge your shadow, the dark, uncomfortable, and often rejected parts of yourself that Jung described as the hidden, repressed, and unfavorable aspects of the psyche. To understand why self-improvement often falls short, you must understand this refusal and the profound psychological and philosophical roots that underpin it. Carl Jung, the pioneer who introduced the concept of the shadow, argued that the psyche is not a monolith of pure light, but a complex landscape where darkness and light coexist. The shadow is not evil in itself. It is a reservoir of everything we deny about ourselves, whether it's rage, vulnerability, envy, or shame. When ignored, these parts don't vanish. They fester, distort perception, and sabotage growth. Your constant drive to fix yourself often becomes a way to avoid this internal confrontation, an unconscious defense mechanism to preserve an image of wholeness without the messiness of inner darkness. But why does the shadow remain so hidden in modern culture? The answer lies in the prevailing narratives about selfhood and progress, shaped by centuries of philosophical and social evolution. The Enlightenment gave birth to the ideal of the rational, autonomous individual, a being who masters reason, controls impulses, and relentlessly pursues progress. Self-improvement became synonymous with control, mastering your habits, your emotions, your environment. It's a narrative of ascendance, one that prizes light, clarity, and visible achievement. Yet this ideal glosses over the chaotic, irrational, and contradictory nature of being human. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who peered into the abyss of human existence, warned against the will to truth becoming a form of self-torture. Nietzsche's critique of morality and the human tendency to seek neat, universal truths echoes deeply here. Your urge for self-improvement is also a will to control the unknowable parts of yourself, to impose order on the unruly depths. But in doing so, you risk silencing the vital impulses that arise from the shadow, the creativity, the intuition, the raw emotions that make life authentic. Jean-Paul Sartre's existentialism further exposes this paradox. According to Sartre, humans are condemned to be free, thrown into existence without predetermined essence. Your self-improvement efforts can become a desperate attempt to escape this freedom by constructing an identity that feels safe and predictable. But freedom also means facing your authentic self, including the aspects you'd rather deny. Avoiding the shadow is a way of fleeing freedom, choosing bad faith over the agony of authentic existence. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, offers a piercing insight into this struggle. He teaches that meaning arises not from success or self-betterment alone, but from the courageous confrontation with suffering and the acceptance of life's paradoxes. If your self-improvement is only about fixing yourself or achieving happiness, it will fail to address the existential void, the part of your soul that thirsts for meaning beyond achievement. Frankl's work shows that denial of suffering, the shadow of life, leads to emptiness, whereas embracing it opens the path to genuine transformation. Moreover, societal forces conspire to deepen this shadow avoidance. Consumer culture floods you with images of flawless happiness, instant success, and perpetual progress. The market for self-improvement is saturated with promises of easy fixes and external solutions, subtly discouraging the messy inner work that requires time, discomfort, and solitude. To admit your shadow is to risk social rejection or self-judgment in a world that values only polished facades. Neurologically, this avoidance is hardwired. Your brain's natural tendency is to avoid pain and seek pleasure. Facing your shadow triggers discomfort, fear, anxiety, shame, activating the brain's threat response. The temptation to flee or distract yourself is overwhelming. This biological resistance makes shadow work one of the most difficult tasks you can undertake, requiring not just will but radical courage. At the heart of this hidden problem lies a fundamental misalignment. Self-improvement, as it is commonly practiced, assumes a fragmented self, one part good, evolving and improving, and another part bad, to be suppressed or ignored. This split creates a psychological war zone where the shadow grows stronger the more you fight it. Your better self becomes an idol, and your shadow a demon to be vanquished. But as Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So what are the consequences of this unconscious divide? How does it shape your emotions, your behavior, your identity? Without integrating the shadow, you live in a constant state of inner conflict. You feel fragmented, restless, and dissatisfied, no matter how much you accomplish. Your fears and insecurities manifest as self-sabotage, anxiety, or chronic dissatisfaction. Relationships become mirrors that reflect your disowned parts, triggering conflict and isolation. Philosophically, this fragmentation perpetuates an illusion of control and separateness that blinds you to your interconnectedness with yourself, with others, and with life's inherent impermanence and mystery. You become a prisoner of your own mental constructs, a marionette dancing to the tune of unconscious fears and desires. The tension mounts here. The very thing you seek, wholeness, peace, authenticity, slips further away the more you try to bypass your shadow. The self-improvement industry, for all its appeal, often leads you into a deeper maze of denial and illusion. You are left at a crossroads. Continue the futile chase of surface-level change, or dare to descend into the abyss of your own psyche. The hidden problem is clear now. Without shadow work, self-improvement is a half-truth. It's a script written by light alone, refusing the darkness that gives your story its depth and meaning. To truly grow, you must stop fleeing the shadow and begin the arduous journey of embracing it. What happens if you refuse? What does this avoidance cost you in the long run? These questions lead us toward a revelation about the unseen consequences that silently shape not just your personal life, but the collective world we inhabit. Before we venture into those consequences, take a moment to feel the weight of what's uncovered. The comfort zone of improving yourself as you know it is a fragile construct. Beneath it lies a profound and unsettling reality. The shadow you deny is not your enemy, but your missing ally. When you're ready, we will explore how this hidden shadow silently crafts your lived reality, its influence more pervasive and insidious than you might imagine. You might think that what hides in your shadow remains locked away, confined to private moments of doubt or fleeting discomfort. But the truth is far more unsettling. The shadow you refuse to face seeps into every crevice of your life, silently scripting your reality in ways you barely perceive. It shapes your emotions, decisions, relationships, and even how society functions, yet it thrives precisely because it remains unseen. Consider this. Cognitive science reveals that the vast majority of your mental processes operate beneath conscious awareness. Your brain filters, interprets, and reacts to the world through biases and heuristics formed by experiences, many of which are tied to shadow elements, repressed fears, denied desires, unresolved trauma. These invisible forces govern your behavior like puppeteers behind the curtain. Have you ever wondered why you keep repeating the same mistakes? Why certain painful patterns feel impossible to break? It's because the shadow's unseen currents tug at your choices, often sabotaging your best intentions. When you set a goal to be more patient, or healthier, or kinder, your conscious mind rallies behind it, but the shadow churns beneath with unresolved rage or guilt that erupts unexpectedly, derailing your progress. Without conscious integration, shadow energy emerges as self-sabotage, projection, or emotional reactivity. Neurologically, this struggle is reflected in the brain's dual systems, the rational prefrontal cortex and the primal limbic system. While your prefrontal cortex strategizes and plans your better self, your limbic brain stores emotional memories, including shadow elements, that react instinctively. This conflict creates internal tension, your higher self versus your shadow impulses, and the shadow often wins when triggered, especially under stress or fatigue. This explains why motivation alone rarely overcomes deep-seated patterns. Culturally, the problem compounds. Collective shadow work is largely neglected or denied. Societies build narratives that celebrate progress, innovation, and surface-level success, while repressing collective pain, injustice, and inequality. This repression festers like a wound beneath the skin of civilization, fueling cycles of violence, prejudice, and disconnection. When individuals ignore their shadows, they mirror a culture that fears its own darkness. The consequence? An epidemic of loneliness, anxiety, and meaninglessness, disguised as personal failure but rooted in systemic denial. Look around. Social media, the curated highlight reels of others' lives, amplifies the illusion that everyone else is moving forward seamlessly. This collective shadow avoidance drives you to constantly compare, to hustle harder, to perfect the facade. But beneath this surface lies a growing disconnect from your authentic self, from others, and from reality itself. This disconnection breeds alienation and despair, a psychological vacuum that no amount of productivity or positivity can fill. Psychologist Jonathan Haidt highlights how cognitive biases such as confirmation bias and the negativity bias reinforce these patterns. Confirmation bias makes you selectively attend to information that supports your current self-image, while ignoring shadow aspects that threaten it. Negativity bias amplifies painful emotions linked to the shadow, making them feel overwhelming and unbearable. Together, they trap you in a cycle of denial and distress, making shadow work seem like a threat rather than a path to freedom. This is why many who embark on self-improvement journeys find themselves stuck in loops of progress and relapse, hope and disappointment. They patch symptoms without addressing root causes. They learn new habits but remain prisoners of unresolved inner conflicts. They grow successful on the outside while the shadow's unresolved energy simmers beneath, waiting to explode. The unseen consequences extend beyond the individual. Collective shadows, unacknowledged histories of trauma, oppression, and greed manifest in societal dysfunction. Political polarization, social unrest, and environmental destruction are expressions of a global shadow that no amount of surface-level reform can heal without deep inner work on a collective scale. Ignoring the shadow isn't just a personal mistake, it's a crisis that shapes the fate of communities and nations. You begin to sense the urgency. This is not a mere philosophical curiosity or psychological niche. The shadow's unseen consequences are existential threats to your well-being and to the fabric of society. The lie of self-improvement as a simple path to success and happiness is a distraction, a siren song luring you away from the truth that liberation demands. But what if this trap can be escaped? What if there is a way to break free from the shadow's silent control, to reclaim your life from the unconscious forces that govern it? The answer lies in rebellion, not the loud, external kind, but an internal revolution that redefines your relationship with yourself and the world. Before we venture into that radical rebellion, pause to feel the weight of this realization. The shadow is not a minor inconvenience or an abstract concept. It is a living force, a primal current flowing through your mind and culture. Ignoring it comes at a price far greater than temporary discomfort. It distorts your reality, fractures your identity, and shackles your potential. The stakes are higher than you imagined. Your deepest yearning for peace, authenticity, and meaning cannot be fulfilled by surface change alone. The shadow's silent power demands reckoning, and only when you confront this hidden master can you begin to claim your freedom. Prepare now to discover the rebellious path of shadow work, the way to shatter illusions, reclaim your power, and forge a new way of being that integrates light and darkness. This path will challenge everything you thought you knew about self-improvement and invite you into a profound transformation. The journey from ignorance to awareness, from denial to integration, is the rebellion that breaks the lie, and it begins here. What if everything you've been told about self-improvement, the endless pursuit of more, better, faster, is not just incomplete, but fundamentally inverted? Imagine that the very blueprint you've been handed is designed to keep you spinning in circles, chasing a brighter version of yourself, while the core remains untouched. To break free requires a rebellion, a radical shift so profound it overturns your entire understanding of growth. This rebellion isn't about resisting society or external systems. It begins within you, a deep refusal to accept the shallow narrative of self-improvement that demands perfection but denies complexity. It is a defiance against the sanitized, surface-level changes that offer only temporary relief. It's the awakening of a primal courage to turn inward, to face what you've hidden, to embrace the shadow with open arms. Counterintuitive. Absolutely, you might expect growth to come from cultivating more light, more positivity, more effort. But the rebellion calls you to do the opposite, to descend deliberately into the darkness, to bring your awareness to what you've repressed. It's an invitation to befriend your fears, your rage, your shame, not as enemies to defeat, but as teachers to integrate. This isn't easy. It demands vulnerability and the willingness to sit with discomfort. But history and psychology show us that true transformation arises from this embrace, not avoidance. Take the example of Viktor Frankl, who found meaning amidst unimaginable suffering by facing his darkest moments head-on. Or Carl Jung himself, who spent decades confronting the unconscious depths of his own psyche, documenting a path of integration that reshaped psychology. Mindset shifts are critical here. Instead of seeing shadows as weaknesses or flaws, you begin to see them as essential aspects of your wholeness. This reframing dissolves shame and resistance, allowing curiosity and compassion to enter. You stop fighting parts of yourself and start listening. Practically, this rebellion manifests in concrete practices that invite you to explore your inner darkness with honesty and gentleness. Journaling with brutal honesty, not to fix but to witness recurring patterns, emotions, and triggers. Mindfulness and meditation, to observe the arising shadows without judgment, creating space for integration. Dialoguing with your shadow, a technique Jung proposed, where you engage in an internal conversation with disowned parts, bringing unconscious content to consciousness. Therapeutic work with practitioners trained in depth psychology or trauma, who can guide you through the labyrinth safely. These tools aren't quick fixes, they're gateways into a new way of relating to yourself, where resistance softens and wholeness unfolds. Historical figures who broke free from cultural illusions of success and perfection embody this rebellion. Look at Nietzsche, who embraced the chaos within and declared the need to create oneself anew from the ruins of old values. Or the mystics who dove into spiritual darkness, understanding it as a crucible of transformation. Even contemporary visionaries who openly share their struggles with mental health reveal that integration of shadow leads to resilience, creativity, and profound authenticity. In reclaiming your control, you reject the myth that happiness or success is a product of relentless striving alone. Instead, You claim sovereignty over your inner world, choosing awareness over avoidance. This sovereignty is not passive acceptance, but active engagement with your shadow, transforming it from a silent saboteur into a wellspring of insight and power. As you build this new way of thinking, you realize that growth is not linear but cyclical, messy, and paradoxical. You learn to dance with your darkness, not banish it. The rebellion awakens a deeper self-love, one that holds all parts of you, even the ones society says to hide. Feeling this power rise within you is electrifying. It's the sensation of stepping off a treadmill into open wilderness, of discovering a territory of self that no handbook ever mapped. You are no longer a passive consumer of self-help dogma, but an active creator of your own evolution. This shift also alters how you relate to others. When you embrace your shadow, you become less reactive, less defensive, more empathetic. You recognize your own imperfections reflected in others, which softens judgment and deepens connection. You break free from patterns of projection, where you blamed others for your discomfort because you have reclaimed those disowned parts. The rebellion invites you to rewrite your story, not as a victim of your flaws or circumstances, but as a warrior of inner truth. It asks you to own the darkness as a vital part of your light, to stop running from what frightens you and instead integrate it. This is the secret passage to freedom that so many overlook. You stand now at the edge of this new frontier, poised to leap into a profound transformation that transcends mere self-improvement. The question is no longer, how can I be better, but how can I be whole? When you're ready, we will journey into the ultimate truth that this rebellion reveals, a revelation so powerful it will forever change how you see yourself and your place in the world. Imagine standing at the edge of everything you thought you knew about yourself, looking into a vast abyss, not one of emptiness, but of profound possibility. The journey through your shadow reveals a truth so radical, so destabilizing, it shatters old illusions and rebuilds your understanding of reality from the ground up. This ultimate truth is simple yet seismic. You are not your light alone, nor your darkness alone. You are the entirety of both. The fragmented self you have chased after, the improved version, is a mirage. Wholeness emerges only when you stop fleeing the parts you deem unacceptable, when you stop fighting the shadows within and around you. Philosophers and mystics have whispered this for centuries, but it's only through the intimate labor of shadow work that it becomes not just an abstract idea, but a living experience. To embrace this is to realize that suffering and joy, weakness and strength, chaos and order are not opposites to be resolved, but complementary forces dancing in the complexity of your being. Carl Jung said it best. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. To become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. This recognition is not defeat, but liberation. It is the opening of the self to its full spectrum. You begin to see your fears and flaws not as burdens to bear or enemies to conquer, but as the very fabric of your humanity. Your anger is the raw energy of self-protection. Your vulnerability is the gateway to connection. Your shame signals where healing is possible. Each shadow element, once integrated, becomes a source of wisdom and power. This insight reframes your relationship with life's paradoxes. Instead of seeking certainty and control, You learn to flow with uncertainty and complexity. You stop craving perfection and start valuing authenticity. You realize that growth is less about arriving somewhere new and more about deeper acceptance of where you are right now. Existential thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Viktor Frankl illuminate this further. Sartre's notion of freedom as an agonizing yet empowering burden finds new meaning when you accept the shadow. It is freedom to be whole with all its contradictions. Frankl's search for meaning in suffering becomes your personal anthem. Meaning is born not in the absence of darkness, but in the courageous embrace of it. This paradigm shift ripples outward. When you embrace your own shadow, you naturally extend compassion to the shadows of others and the world. You understand that collective wounds, social injustices, cultural fractures, environmental crises are reflections of unintegrated shadows on a global scale. Healing begins with individual integration, but it demands collective courage. The cinematic final act of this revelation is both humbling and empowering. You are no longer fragmented, no longer enslaved by unconscious fears. You are a luminous complexity, light woven with darkness, order infused with chaos, a universe unto yourself. Your journey doesn't end with this realization, it deepens. Shadow work is not a one-time fix, but a lifelong practice, a dynamic dance. Yet this truth, the ultimate truth, sets the foundation for profound peace and authenticity. It is a gift that forever alters how you move through the world, how you relate to yourself and others. Close your eyes and imagine this, a life where you no longer hide from your darkness, where your fears become teachers and your flaws become sources of strength. A life where the lie of self-improvement as perfection crumbles and is replaced by the raw, beautiful truth of being wholly human. This is not a destination, it is a continuous becoming. And with this truth held deep in your bones, you carry a radical power, the power to live fully, freely, and authentically. The shadow is no longer a threat, but a trusted companion. The great question you once faced, whether self-improvement is real or illusion, now answers itself in a whisper of profound integration. You are whole, you are enough, you are ready,